How to be desired without chasing. The law of unavailability. Why do people chase those who ignore them and ignore those who are always available? It's not manipulation. It's not game playing. It's psychology. If you've ever poured your heart into someone who barely noticed you, yet found yourself hooked on someone who gave you breadcrumbs, then this message is for you. Today we uncover a law, not a trick, not a tactic, a law of human behavior that governs attraction, respect, and power. And once you understand it, you'll stop begging for attention and start commanding it. Stay with me until the end. Because what you'll discover might just change the way people perceive you forever. Why do we desire what we can't have? Why does someone become instantly more attractive the moment they become unavailable? The answer isn't superficial, it's rooted deep in the human mind. Value is not intrinsic. Value is perceived. It's built on rarity, on access, on effort. And this is where most people lose themselves in relationships, in social settings, in life. They confuse giving with gaining. They believe that by being constantly available, always present, always saying yes, they'll win love, loyalty, and admiration. But the brutal truth is, they won't. The world doesn't reward what is common. It overlooks what is abundant. Look around. The most precious stones are buried deep in the earth. The most expensive brands don't put themselves on every corner. They don't scream for attention. They don't beg to be chosen. And yet people line up for them. People save for them. People crave them, not because of what they are, but because of what they represent. Exclusivity, prestige, and above all, scarcity. Now think about yourself. Are you presenting yourself like luxury or like a clearance sale? Are you offering your time, energy, and emotions to anyone who simply shows up, or are you selective, intentional? Because here's the law, the one most people ignore. The more accessible you are, the less desirable you become. This isn't about playing games. This is about understanding human psychology. When someone knows they can have you whenever they want, your presence loses its impact. You become expected, not respected. Familiar, not fascinating. We are hardwired to pursue challenge. We chase what feels earned. That's why the friend who always replies instantly gets forgotten, while the one who takes time, who gives space, who isn't always there, lives in our mind rent-free. It's not that they're more valuable. So how do you apply this? You start by honoring your time. You start by realizing that your presence is a privilege, not a product. You stop saying yes out of fear of being forgotten. You stop over-explaining, oversharing, over-giving just to be accepted. Because here's what happens when you embrace scarcity. People pay attention. They wonder what you're doing, where you are, what you're thinking. They start seeing you as someone who chooses, not someone who clings. Your absence begins to carry more weight than your overexposed presence ever did. Let them miss you. Let your silence make a sound louder than your constant voice ever could. This is how you shift the dynamic, from chasing to attracting, from being taken for granted to being taken seriously. And don't misunderstand, scarcity doesn't mean disappearing. It doesn't mean being cold or unkind. It means being intentional. It means understanding that your energy is not for everyone, that not every invitation deserves a yes, that being everywhere makes you nowhere special. If you want to be desired, admired, respected, then stop being always available. Start becoming rare. Because in the end, people don't chase what's easy to find. They chase what they believe they may never find again. And that is how value is created. every single day you're spending a currency more valuable than money, you may not notice it leaving you because there's no receipt, no alert, no alarm, but it's being spent conversation by conversation, thought by thought, moment by moment. That currency is your energy. We live in a world where people are taught to guard their money but not their attention, to track their finances but never question who they give their emotions to. But energy is finite. You don't get more just because you wish for it. Once you give it away, it's gone. And the terrifying part is that most people give it away to people, habits, and conversations that don't deserve even a fraction of it. Your energy is what fuels your presence, your vibe, your aura. It's what people feel before you say a single word. And yet, too often we exhaust it trying to prove ourselves to people who don't care, trying to earn love from those who don't value it, or trying to explain ourselves to those already committed to misunderstanding us. But here's the truth. When you give too freely, too easily, you begin to lose your edge. People sense it. They sense when you're over-investing, over-explaining, over-committing. And the more you give without boundaries, the more they take without gratitude. We teach others how to treat us by what we tolerate. If you're constantly the one reaching out, constantly fixing things, constantly giving without being asked, you're telling the world that your energy is cheap. And what's cheap is rarely respected. Think about it. When someone has to work for your attention, they value it more. When they know you're selective with your time and careful with your focus, they show up differently. But when you're always available, always eager, always pouring into others without stopping to refill yourself, you become emotionally bankrupt, spiritually exhausted, invisible. There's a quiet power in restraint, in being intentional, in saying, I will not spend my energy where it is not reciprocated. That power doesn't come from bitterness, it comes from wisdom. Because you begin to realize something essential. Not everyone deserves access to you. Not every situation is worth your reaction. Not every argument needs your defense, and not every silence deserves to be filled. Your energy should be invested, not spilled. It should be measured, not wasted. Give it to what builds you, to who sees you, to spaces that feel like peace, not performance. Because when you give energy to the wrong things, you rob the right things of your full presence. There is nothing wrong with caring, nothing wrong with giving. But there is something deeply wrong with giving until you have nothing left. You cannot be powerful if you are depleted. You cannot attract what's meant for you if you're drained by what isn't. So protect your energy like it's gold, because it is. Audit your emotional expenses. Choose where your thoughts go, who gets your time, who earns your words. Because when your energy is spent wisely, it multiplies your value. It sharpens your presence. It makes people lean in, wonder, respect you, miss you. Not because you made yourself constantly available, but because you finally understood your energy is your wealth, and you are no longer handing it out for free. There's something strange about human desire. It doesn't follow logic. It's not always about beauty, success, or even compatibility. Often it's about distance, about mystery, about that haunting sense that no matter how close someone gets, they can't quite hold all of you. And that's what makes you unforgettable. The moment you become completely predictable, the moment someone feels like they've figured you out, is the moment their curiosity starts to fade. We don't chase what we fully understand. We don't crave what's easily possessed, but we do obsess over what feels just out of reach. The person who's kind yet reserved, present but never desperate, warm yet with an edge of mystery that says, You don't get all of me just because you want to. This isn't about being manipulative. It's about understanding human psychology. People project value onto what they must work for. That's why luxury brands never beg to be noticed. They don't need to. Their silence speaks louder than a scream. The same rule applies to people. When you give someone everything, your time, your attention, your thoughts, before they've earned it, you remove the thrill of discovery. You take away their need to show up with effort, with curiosity, with respect. When someone feels they already have you mentally, emotionally, energetically, they may not even realize it, but they stop showing up the same way. They stop wondering about you. They stop listening as deeply. They may even begin to overlook you, not because you lack worth, but because they feel like they've already claimed you. And in doing so, the fire dies. But when you hold something back, not out of fear, not out of pride, but out of deep self-respect, people lean in. They wonder what's beneath your calm. They start paying attention to your silences. They ask questions. They remember your words. They feel that hunger to know you because you haven't made yourself entirely accessible. This is how admiration begins. When someone senses that there's more to you than they can see. When they feel like being part of your world is something they have to earn, not something you're handing out like a gift to anyone who shows interest. Understand this. True desire is fueled by restraint. Not coldness, not distance, but restraint. A subtle holding back that says, I choose who gets close. I protect my essence. I don't give all of myself just to feel wanted. Because the more someone senses you have a world inside you that they haven't yet unlocked, the more magnetized they become. You stop being just another person. You become a puzzle, a story, a depth they want to explore. Not for conquest, but for connection. So stop trying to be completely known by everyone. You're not here to be figured out by the masses. You're here to be deeply seen by the few who are willing to put in the effort, the patience, and the respect it takes to earn real closeness. You don't need to give everything away to be loved. You don't need to be an open book to be desired. You just need to understand this one truth. People want what they feel they can't fully have. Not because you're hiding, but because you're whole. And wholeness doesn't chase. Wholeness attracts. You can have intelligence, you can have looks, charm, ambition, all of it. But if you can't control your emotions, the world will control you. People will provoke you, life will test you, and situations will bait you just to see how quickly you lose yourself. And every time you react instead of respond, you give away your power. Emotional control is not about being cold or detached. It's about being wise. It's the quiet realization that not everything deserves your reaction. Not everyone deserves your explanation. And not every emotion needs to be acted on. Because when you don't control what you feel starts to control what you become. You've seen it before. Someone gets ignored and they become desperate. Someone gets rejected and they lash out. Someone feels insecure and they start performing, chasing, begging for validation. This isn't strength. This is emotional slavery. When your mood is dictated by external validation, when your peace is broken by someone else's behavior, you're not in control. You're a puppet on strings and everyone else is pulling them. True emotional control is power. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need to prove anything. It doesn't beg to be understood. Instead, it watches. It pauses. It thinks. It gives silence where others expect chaos. And that silence That's where your power begins, because people expect you to be reactive. They expect you to be fragile. They expect you to be fragile. People don't know what to do with someone who won't emotionally unravel. It confuses them. It disarms them. It shifts the dynamic. Because when you remain composed, you make it clear, you don't control me. My emotions aren't up for grabs. My peace isn't yours to play with. The most magnetic people you'll ever meet are not the loudest. They're the most centered. The ones who walk into a room with quiet confidence. The ones who don't chase attention but receive it. And the reason they're so compelling isn't because they say more, it's because they say less with more meaning. They don't blurt every emotion. They don't explain every decision. They don't wear their wounds like badges. They simply move with calm precision. That's power. You gain a different kind of influence when people realize they can't predict your reactions, that you're not easily shaken, that you don't give away your feelings just to be seen. It's not about suppressing your emotions. It's about owning them, being in charge of them, feeling deeply but expressing wisely. That's where maturity lives. That's where presence is built. Because no one is attracted to someone who falls apart at every slight inconvenience. No one respects someone who argues with every insult. But the one who can stand in the fire and not be burned, that's rare. That's admirable. That's unforgettable. If you want to be desired, respected, remembered, master your emotional reactions. Learn to pause. Learn to listen more than you speak. Learn to protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. And once you realize the true power of emotional control, you stop chasing outcomes. You stop shaping them. You stop trying to convince others of your worth, because your composure already says everything they need to know. There's a quiet truth the world doesn't want you to realize. The less available you are, the more valuable you become. In every part of life, from relationships to opportunities, scarcity creates value. Not because you're playing games, not because you're withholding out of fear or ego, but because what is rare is respected. What is constantly present becomes overlooked. What is hard to access becomes deeply desired. You don't see billboards for diamonds. You don't see sales for gold. Why? Because true value doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't chase approval. It simply exists and demands reverence by the nature of its rarity. When you make yourself available to everyone, at every moment, in every situation, you unknowingly dilute your worth. You become familiar, predictable, taken for granted. And it's not because you're not good enough. It's because people begin to treat you the way you treat yourself, as common, as accessible, as always there. Think about it. If someone always answers your call on the first ring, always says yes no matter the ask, always shows up even when they're being treated poorly, eventually that presence is no longer seen as a gift. It becomes an expectation. And expectations breed entitlement. But when you begin to pull back, not to manipulate, but to protect your energy, people start to notice. When you become less reactive, more selective, more intentional with who and what you give your time to, others start to feel the shift. And that shift creates gravity. Suddenly, your silence speaks volumes. Your distance becomes intriguing. Your presence, when given, feels meaningful. We are wired to chase what we cannot easily have, to crave what feels earned, to value what feels exclusive. So when you stop offering yourself like a convenience store open 24/7 and instead begin treating your presence like a private gallery by invitation only, you elevate your energy from common to unforgettable. Scarcity isn't about loneliness, it's about standards. It's about choosing to be intentional, about being rare in a world obsessed with constant access. It's saying, you don't get my time just because you asked for it. You don't get my heart just because you want it. You get it when you show that you're worthy of it. And that's when everything changes. Because when people realize they don't have unlimited access to you, they rise to meet your value. They become more thoughtful, more respectful. They stop treating you like an option and start treating you like a privilege. But none of that happens if you keep offering yourself without discernment. You are not meant to be everywhere. You are not meant to say yes to everything. You are not meant to explain yourself to everyone. The more you practice being scarce with your time, your energy, and your emotions, the more others begin to feel the weight of your presence when it is given. This is how kings and queens carry themselves, not with arrogance, but with self-awareness. They don't walk into every room. They don't answer every call. They don't engage every invitation. And that's why people lean in. That's why people listen when they speak, because they understand the law of scarcity. They understand that the rarest things in life are never loud. They're just never forgotten. So protect your rarity. Don't apologize for being unavailable. Don't explain why you're not always accessible. Let your absence do the talking. Let your scarcity build your value. Because when the world sees that you don't need to be everywhere, they'll begin to treat your presence like the treasure it truly is. In a world addicted to exposure, where everyone is broadcasting every thought, every moment, and every feeling, the person who knows how to remain a mystery becomes magnetic. It's not because they're hiding. It's because they understand the truth most people overlook. When people can't figure you out, they can't forget you. Mystery isn't about manipulation. It's not about playing games or being deliberately confusing. It's about understanding that not everything about you needs to be explained, posted, or proven. When you withhold just enough, you allow curiosity to grow. And curiosity is the spark that turns into attraction, interest, even obsession. People crave what they can't fully grasp. They lean into what's not easily given, because mystery forces the imagination to work, and the imagination is far more powerful than any words you could ever say. When people don't know everything about you, they fill in the blanks with wonder, and that wonder creates depth. It builds fascination. It makes you unforgettable, not for what you revealed, but for what you chose not to. In the early stages of relationships, romantic, professional, or social, the biggest mistake people make is overexposure. They overshare, they overtalk, they overexplain, hoping to be liked, understood, accepted, but in doing so, they kill the intrigue. Because once people feel like they know everything, they stop asking questions. And when the questions stop, so does the chase. But mystery keeps the question alive. Who is this person really? That question is powerful. It keeps people interested, not because you're deceiving them, but because you're showing that you value your inner world too much to put it all on display for free. Your silence becomes a signal of confidence. Your restraint becomes a statement. You're not avoiding connection, you're inviting curiosity. And that's how real bonds are formed. Slowly, intentionally, layer by layer. There's power in not always reacting, in not always posting, in not always sharing every detail of your past, your pain, your dreams. The most captivating people are those who reveal themselves like a story, one page at a time, each chapter earned, not dumped in a single conversation. They don't flood you with information. They allow you to discover them. And that discovery process is what builds emotional investment. Mystery also builds respect. When you hold something back, when you make others work to truly know you, they begin to value your truth more when you finally share it. Think about it. Anything that comes too easily, too quickly, is rarely cherished. But when someone has to be patient, when they have to pay attention, when they have to earn your trust, the connection becomes deeper, stronger, more meaningful. You don't owe the world your transparency. You owe yourself your peace. And protecting your mystery doesn't make you guarded. It makes you self-aware. You know that not everyone deserves access to the deepest parts of who you are. Some people are only meant to see the surface, others the middle. But only the rare few, the ones who prove themselves with time, respect, and intention, earn the right to see the full picture. So stay mysterious, not to be distant, but to remain dignified. Let people wonder. Let them question. Let them lean in closer, not because you demanded their attention, but because your silence made them curious. In a world full of noise, the one who knows how to stay quietly powerful becomes the one no one can ignore.